Friday Newsday, and back to our breaking news story now. Moments ago, the Constitutional Court extending the social grants contract with Cash Paymaster Services for 6 months. eNCA's Erin Bates is at the Constitutional Court. Erin, good afternoon to you. So what reasons were given and what in effect does this mean?
It was a very short and sharp judgment, Jeremy, effectively sort of lifting the unconstitutionality of the contract between CPS and Sassa for another 6 months. This is in order to ensure that it continues, or the duo continue to provide that key service, rolling out cash grants to social grant beneficiaries. But there are some serious conditions to this judgment from the Constitutional Court. It was a unanimous judgment, and it includes asking the acting CEO of Sassa, Pearl Bengu, and former Social Development Minister Bathabile Dlamini to file affidavits giving reasons why they should not personally be joined to this case.
Erin, are these conditions any more onerous than we've heard from the Constitutional Court in the past, though?
Not really. I mean, the only thing that's slightly different are the timelines here, these truncated timelines on report backs on the progress of bringing social grant payments in-house. But the trend of asking for reports from Sassa and from other branches of government on this in-house process go back to the very beginnings of this case, its genesis, when it first began in the Constitutional Court back in 2014. So in that sense, it's much of the same. The only difference, of course, beyond this is that there's a new social development minister in charge now at the Department of Social Development. But Pearl Bengu, as we heard there, needs to file an answering affidavit here, and the former social development minister. And that pulls in the inquiry which was held at the Office of the Chief Justice, looking into whether or not Bathabile Dlamini should personally be held to pay for some of this litigation over the rollout of social grants and the very intricate relationship between CPS and Sassa.
Just remind us again, Erin, why Sassa wanted this contract to be extended in the first place. Was it a question of logistics and capacity, or was there more to it than that?
Well, there may be more to it than that if you look at the papers which were filed by Freedom Under Law as well as the Black Sash, really fingering and questioning this relationship between CPS and Sassa, which just does not seem to come to an end despite several orders from the Constitutional Court over years. But the argument that Sassa brought to the Constitutional Court was that it desperately needed CPS to continue the rollout of these cash payments. But again, it is a bigger story than that, because the Sassa Grindrod cards, which are held by millions of people and remain valid until the end of the year, also require IT infrastructure, which is provided by CPS. And at this point, there's no one else who seems to be able to provide some of the services that CPS currently offers. They, in fact, were involved in a bidding process, a meeting for bidders for new service providers for cash grant payments in around February of this year. So it may well be that even within the constitutional law, that CPS could continue paying social grants in cash moving forward if they win that bid. They may win it, but there are other bidders involved in that process.
Was anything mentioned, Erin Bates, about how CPS is going to be paid?
Yes, and so this is where National Treasury steps in. It's very important for the court here that National Treasury and CPS have a discussion around the payments, the income, the monies that CPS can receive for providing the service moving forward. And that actually came up in arguments on the 6th of March. CPS's lawyer saying it's a business and it needs to make its turnover monthly in order to be able to continue facilitating these cash grant payments. So now Treasury and CPS need to have a conversation about what they can charge fairly and within this constitutional order, and then agree to an amount which they will report back to the Constitutional Court. So this unanimous order from the bench includes very strict reporting back from National Treasury, from Sassa, and information on how they're going to wean themselves off of what you could call a dependence on CPS for rolling out those social grants, which reach over almost 12 million people now, many of whom are children.
And I suppose it's too early, Erin, for you to have gathered any reaction to this.
No reaction as yet. Interestingly, compared to the 6th of March hearing, that it was very threadbare in terms of audience in the Constitutional Court this afternoon. We did get notice about the matter late, but Paul Bengu and Minister Susan Shabangu were here, along with Mark Barnes of the Post Office, when those arguments were heard. Some members of Black Sash also here today, but very few officials, I'm afraid to say, and perhaps it's up to our colleagues to see if we can get some response from the necessary government departments.
Maybe it's got something to do with the weather in Johannesburg. Erin Bates at the Constitutional Court, thank you.